All right, it's 10 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate all of you joining us today. We're excited to have Spencer Kohler from the Southwest statewide region talk to us about mindfulness and your mental health. Spencer has been the director of students in that region for about 5.5 years, and he is also a licensed clinical mental health counselor. So we're excited to have him join us. I've had the opportunity to visit a few different conferences and things and have him present to some different groups, and felt that he would have a lot to offer for this professional development seminar. So appreciate him joining us today from the winter wonderland there that he is at. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or raise your hand. I'll keep an eye out and try to relay those to Spencer. And otherwise, I will turn the time over to him.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. And welcome, everybody. Welcome to my wonderful Aggie family. I am so happy to see all of you here today. And I'm happy that you're going to spend a few minutes today talking about some what I deem is some very, very important information. Mindfulness is a very broad topic, and there's a lot of things that we could talk about. There's a lot of things that we could go into when we think about mindfulness and how this works. One of the areas that I want to focus on today is in cognitive distortions. And when I present, one of the things that I want you guys to do is be able to use this information twofold. I want you to be able to go through some of these things and look at yourself and say, oh, do I fit in this? Is this something that I do? Is this something that is happening, to me? And do I need to make course corrections and changes in my life? And then the other part of this is looking at other people, looking at people that we work with on a regular basis, our colleagues, our coworkers, our family members, our extended family members, friends, neighbors, people that we come in contact with every single day. Someone will fall into one or all of these categories that we're going to talk about today in cognitive distortions. With everything that's going on in the world today, suicide is very big. It's hitting all of us really, really hard. And I know all of us would love to have kind of a playbook or something that we could read signs of what somebody else is going through, or what they're thinking, or what is causing their thought patterns to go in a certain direction. Recently in my community, they're handing out signs. And I know some of you have done this in other communities, and probably you guys have this in your neighborhood too. But we were all handed out these signs in case of a natural disaster. One of them is red, saying we need help, and the other one is green, saying everybody's okay. And if there is some type of problem or some type of disaster that happens, it's really easy for law enforcement, first responders to drive past your house and be able to see this red or green picture in a window that faces the street. And sometimes I wonder, wouldn't it be nice if we had something like that? Maybe we could stick it on our forehead, right? We could stick that red or green sign and say, you know what? I'm just not having it today. I'm just overwhelmed, and I'm struggling, and I'm having problems, and there's so many challenges in my life. Here's my sign. Will somebody read that and then treat me accordingly? Will somebody give me that shoulder that I need to cry on? Or will somebody just talk to me, be a friend to me, give me a little bit of grace because I'm struggling? I think right now, after going through the pandemic, after having years and years of social media exposure, we are all struggling on so many different levels. And I think we're seeing that more so in our kids. I think we're seeing the generation that's darkening our doors here at Utah State University. They're coming in and they're scared. there's a lot of fear behind those eyes, right? There's fear of the future. There's fear of coming and getting an education. There's fear of moving forward and uncertainty of what's going to happen or where life is going to lead them. And so as we go through these cognitive distortions, I want you to be able to, like I said, not only look at yourself and say, hey, do I fit into some of these categories? And then I'm going to present some ideas to help us change, help us make a difference here. And I also want you to look at this too and see if there's somebody, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a colleague, maybe it's, one of your close friends or family members that need some of this information. So kicking it off here, I am a Star Wars fan. I am a Disney fan. I'll just get that out of the way. So, throwing out some of these pictures here, you might recognize that. But what are the cognitive distortions that we first run into when working with people who are thinking? And sometimes, getting too much in our head and not enough outside of our head, is this all or nothing approach to things. And some people call it polarized thinking. It's black and white. It's not gray. We have a hard time being able to see things or the gray areas or the nuances of our lives. It's all or nothing. And sometimes this can change. Now, we're not talking about bipolar disorder here. We're not talking about emotional one day and not emotional the next. We're talking about just our way of thinking about different things. So sometimes this can happen on a Monday. The person comes into work and they're thinking in one direction, and then by Friday, all of a sudden they're thinking another direction. And it's that swinging back and forth from one end of the spectrum to the other. A couple examples here. The moment your boss proposes remote work, you might think that you will not succeed in doing that. So there again, it's that all or nothing. And if a new idea is presented to you, all of a sudden you're like, nope, it's not going to work. It's going to fail. I'm going to fail. The whole team's going to fail. The whole department is going to fail. Everything's going to fall apart. And it just begins to spiral, over and over like that. Another example is, I never get what I want. The world is out to get me, and I can never win. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I feel that way. I feel like there's some days that I am just, pounding the pavement day in and day out and doing whatever I possibly can to just keep my head above water. And I just feel like I can't win in the day. And sometimes that means maybe I need to, redefine what does winning the day mean? For some of us, it's just that we survive, right? It's like, if I survive this day, I'm a winner. Others of us who are more polarized are like, nope, I wake up in the morning, I'm not going to win this day. Midday, around lunchtime, still haven't won the day. And when I go to bed at night, I didn't win the day. And that's a struggle to feel that way, and feel that way day in and day out. If that's the case, if you're feeling that way on a regular basis, then there's probably a different course correction that we need to make. There's changes that we need to make. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of those changes with some of these. So all or nothing thinking or polarized thinking. The next one we're going to jump into is overgeneralization. Now, just so you know, as we go through some of these, there's a lot of gray area in these, and some of these mesh together really well. Some experts say there's 10, some experts say there's 15. So it depends upon who you talk to, and the way I classify them is just the way it makes sense in my mind. And if it makes sense differently in yours, that's fine. It's all right. So we're talking about small mistakes here that lead to feelings of failure. We're talking about feeling stupid and dumb. An example here is you receive a poor performance evaluation. How many of us have received one of those? I got written up for doing something that was out of character for me, So we get a poor performance evaluation that is reflective of one isolated event, one incident, and it leaves you feeling hurt feelings. and then you feel like you're not any good at your job. How many of us feel that way about our jobs? Maybe we made one mistake, or maybe we overstepped our bounds, or maybe we were all gung-ho, and then all of a sudden somebody just stopped us and said, whoa, wait, you're jumping too many hoops too quickly. And then we're like, oh crap, I suck. I'm dumb. I'm an idiot for doing this. And a lot of that negative talk is what we need to be mindful of. Is this indicative of all of your performance? No. Are you a good employee? Yeah, you have a job, you're employed here, and Utah State employs great people, as we know. And so, yeah, your work is valued, your work is respected, your work is looked at as appreciated, hopefully by your colleagues and others. But sometimes that one negative incident can just drag us right down. And that's what we have to watch out for. Some of the signs that you may see in some people, they may be looking for jobs, maybe looking for a different job someplace else. Maybe when you talk to this individual, they're like, yeah, I was checking job boards today. I'm like, wow, you've been here with Utah State a long time, and it seems like you have that job board up every single day. What's the deal? What's going on? And it's good to have conversations with those people and say, are you dissatisfied with your work? Why? Why is that the case? Why do you feel like you have to constantly be looking for another job? What's interesting about it is all too often they're too afraid to take the other job. And we'll talk about some of these other distortions that will lead into that. But they're looking because they feel like a failure. They're looking because they feel like they made a mistake. They can never bounce back from it. People are always going to bring it up and always going to throw it in their face. So what's the point? What's the point? I'm giving up. I'm a failure anyway. I'm going to just go on to the next job. And if I hit that job, maybe I won't be a failure there. Maybe it'll be a better fit. Maybe it's just, Utah State and I don't mesh. And because of that, I'm going elsewhere. This can be the same thing for relationships too. When you look at relationships outside of the office or even amongst colleagues, maybe you can say, well, I'm going to move to a different department because maybe I just don't mesh, because I'm always doing something wrong, I'm always messing up, I'm always making mistakes. And we do. And unfortunately in our culture, it's not as acceptable as it should be to make mistakes. And I wish that was different. And I hope all of us work hard every day to make sure that those people on our team know that if you make a mistake, it's all right. I still value you as a colleague. I still value you as an individual and what you bring to this team. So you made a mistake. It happened yesterday. It's in the past. There's nothing we can do about it. Do we need to fix the future? Yeah, we probably need to put some things in place to fix things so that it doesn't happen again, but let's move forward. Let's not hold on to it. Let's not let it drag us down. Let's not let it drag you down. Let's not let it drag the team down. And so those are some ways to help folks who are feeling that way. So they feel like their boss doesn't like them. If the mistake was, between them and their boss, if it was something, dumb that they said, I am of the male persuasion. I totally accept full responsibility for all the dumb things that I say. I realize that that's something about myself. That is true. And so I constantly, I can't tell you, but probably some of you here, have received an email from me that said, oh, by the way, I said something stupid in that meeting. And I'm sorry. I misspoke. I was out of turn. And that's happened. I'll give you an example. I said something one time while I was out doing a recruiting event, and I hurt the feelings of one of my colleagues. And she called me up and she said, Spence, what you said hurt my feelings. And I said, oh my word, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Will you tell me more about that? will you tell me more about how that made you feel? Will you tell me more about the way I said it, and the way it hurts you, and why it hurts you? And what's interesting is if you create a space like that where people can come and talk to you about those things. Sometimes we say open door policy, come in, and mine is an open Zoom policy, just saying, because I don't have an open door policy. But if we allow people to come in and talk about those things, it creates a relationship of trust. And it opens up doors for good conversations to be had. So where we can pick up, we can heal from the mistakes that have happened, because they happen every day. And then we have a better and stronger working relationship with our colleagues. So I learned from this individual that she was worried and concerned about other things. And those concerns were actually the root cause of what was happening. Really, what I said was not, huge, and it really didn't make that big of an impact for her, but it was my reference to something that triggered some painful emotions for her that really was the culprit there. But I still took responsibility for my part, because the words came out of my mouth. Nobody forced me to say what I said. I said it on my own free will. So working really hard to provide those opportunities. They feel they can't do their job. They feel like they went in the wrong line of work, looking for other things. Another distortion here that I think kind of fits under overgeneralization is the magnification or minimization. And oftentimes this is we're having a catastrophe. There's one small problem. Maybe you said something wrong, or maybe you made reference to something wrong. Maybe you had bad data, and you're presenting it, and it messed the perspective up of the meeting that you're in. Instead of catastrophizing, oh man, I'm just waiting for my boss to call, I'm going to get fired, I better start looking for a new job because I made this one huge mistake. Instead of catastrophizing the whole thing, bring it back into perspective. This was an isolated incident. There's so many other things that I do that are good, that are accurate, that are on top of things. I get things done. I meet deadlines. Running through your mind of those many, many, many things that you do well is going to help you combat this overgeneralization and catastrophizing of this thought process. There again, that's that mindfulness part that we're bringing into this. Be mindful that this is happening, and be mindful of how to change that. Thinking and your thought process makes a huge difference. Okay. Mental filter versus disqualifying the positives. This is an interesting one where oftentimes we have one employee dwelling on a single negative comment made by a coworker and viewing that whole project or that whole team effort or whatever the team is working on, it's hopeless. It becomes a hopeless endeavor because one person made and maybe it wasn't even that negative, it was just contrary to the direction that you were headed, and so it felt negative to you, and all of a sudden we're just like, oh, I can't do it, I can't do this project, I can't work with these people, I can't be on this team, I can't do this. And then we spiral once again into that negative thought pattern. So disqualifying the positive, oftentimes, we can sit across from somebody and we can feed them a whole bunch of positive things, especially if you're dealing with somebody who has depression, somebody who has anxieties, natural fears around some of this. But if you're one of those people that have a really hard time, receiving positive feedback, that's something to look at. That's something to consider. So here an employee gets a positive review at work, but rejects the idea that they might be competent. So I can talk to a colleague until I'm blue in the face about all the good things that they do. And all of the things that they do right every single day. Hands down, if you look at any given day, no matter how hard it might be, no matter how bad it might be, more things went right in that day than went wrong. And sometimes we don't focus on all those things because they're small, they're simple. Yeah, maybe your boss yelled at you at work and maybe things fell apart, but your car functioned well. It got you to work. Your office, is accessible. You're warm. You have food on the table. You have a home to go home to. All these different things. There's not a huge enough problem that it discounted all of the things that went right. Always remember that, because there are more things that go right than not. So more than having a hard time accepting a compliment, we have to really sit back and ask ourselves, okay, if somebody comes up and says, you did a really good job today. I really enjoyed your presentation. Do we shrug it off? Do we laugh it off? Like, oh yeah, well, you would have done a whole lot better, or do we sincerely say, hey, thank you. I really appreciate you acknowledging my effort. I really appreciate you taking the time to let me know that. Sometimes our mind will go to a direction of saying, oh, they're just being nice. Tim can come up to me and say, Spence, oh, you did a great job, buddy. And I'll be like, yeah, well, Tim has to say that because we're friends, But really, it's somebody giving you a sincere compliment, and that should be received, and that should be taken in. You should cognitively go, yeah, that, maybe it didn't feel like the job that I did went very well, but somebody else looked at it from a different perspective, from a different angle, and they saw something that maybe I didn't. And so I can take that and say, all right, yeah, let's take it at face value. If somebody compliments me, that was the truth. That was their truth. They're not just, blowing fluff or making things up or trying to make me feel better. It was really sincere. It was sincerely given, sincerely delivered. It was sincerely received. And then I can accept that compliment for myself. Okay. So this is especially concerning because it can facilitate the continuation of negative thought patterns. And there again, all of these that we're talking about, these distortions, they're cognitive distortions because they are a breeding ground for negative thoughts. And that's what feeds us on a regular basis. There's a lot of things in society that is breeding this as well. And we need to watch out for those things. We need to be careful and cautious of how we think about these different situations that we encounter. Jumping to conclusions. I love the picture, danger, assumptions, okay? I'm not going to tell you what assumption and what it makes out of you and me and all that kind of stuff. You can leave that to your imagination. But assumptions are not good. Assumptions rob us of so much. So if we're jumping to conclusions here, and we do a mind reading jumping to conclusions, we're making assumptions on what other people are thinking, okay? Now, we all do it. I will be the first to admit, I assume way too much. And my wife is better at this than I am. She's always really good at saying, honey, did you check? Did you ask this question? Did you ask this question? And I'm like, no, sorry. Must have missed that one somewhere. Sometimes we look at reading a situation. We look at reading, the room, for example, or taking the temperature of where we are and what we're doing and the work that we're doing. And we make all kinds of assumptions. Now, is it ever possible for people to get rid of assumptions 100%? Probably not, okay? But when we do make assumptions, are we coming back and saying, whoa, wait, you know what, that's totally on me. My bad. I'm sorry. I assumed something that wasn't there. And that was unfair. on my part, and I apologize for that. So an example of mind reading here, a colleague makes an out of character comment one day in a meeting, and you assume they are trying to cause problems, okay? How many times have we had colleagues come into a meeting or walk into the office and say something, and you sit there and you're like, wow, that was really out of character. There's something not right there. There's something more going on. There's something else happening here. And when that happens, I wish all of you would just put a pause on whatever you're doing, no matter how busy you are, no matter what you're doing, where you are, what the circumstance is. Just take a pause, maybe pull that person aside in a private setting and say, you know what, that comment you made seemed a little off for you. It just kind of seems out of character. Is there something else going on? Is there something else that maybe we should talk about? Is there something that you'd like to get off your mind, so that we can talk about what's going on, what's happening? There again, that element of creating a space where you're being mindful of another person who may be struggling and you don't know what's going on, but all you got in that moment was a tip of the iceberg. And making a space so that you can start talking about what that iceberg looks like, what the color looks like, what the shade is, how big it is, how cold it is, how desolate it may feel or seem, really can disarm a lot of problems in people. But you have to be willing to do that. You have to be ready at any given moment to look at a situation. It's so easy. It is so easy for all of us to run into that type of situation and say, well, what's wrong with you? I mean, why are you coming into this meeting and causing this kind of a problem? I mean, we all have problems. What makes your problems any worse than mine? Why do you think you're so special? Okay. And there again, those are assumptions that we're reading into what their thought process is. We're thinking that there is malicious intent when really there probably wasn't. They probably had a flat tire on the way to work, or they're having family struggles and trials. And sometimes, folks, family life bleeds into work life. And sometimes work life bleeds into family life. I mean, we do our best to try to keep them separate, but sometimes that doesn't always happen. So moving on to fortune telling. And I love this because there again, I do it. I totally do it. Making conclusions and predictions based on little or no evidence. I can't tell you the many times that I've seen somebody reach out and say something just really short in an email. And there again, it's a little out of character, or somebody makes a short complaint about something. And nobody stops to say, oh, clarifying questions. Let me find out what's going on. Let me ask you about this. Let me ask you about this. It's just they take offense to what's been said. They get hurt by what they read. And I can't tell you how many emails I've sent that have been totally misconstrued. You know, if oftentimes you don't know a person's attitude, if you don't know them personally and you get this random email, and I send funny emails sometimes that people go, whoa, Spence, that was really rude and obnoxious. And I'm like, oh, sorry, that's not what I meant. That was not how I meant to send that. That was not the background there. And so we get, offended. We get angry. We lash out at some people. And I've seen that in meetings. I've seen supervisors lash out at employees over something that was probably not appropriate, but there's so much more that was going on there that they didn't see at that time. So what should we do? Always, always, always ask clarifying questions. Get more information, get more detail. Don't jump to conclusions, and recognize when you do jump to conclusions that maybe those conclusions were not right. Sometimes a lot of us feel like we have great instincts. We feel like we can read a room. We feel like we can do all this kind of stuff. But that being said, at the end of the day, clarifying questions are always going to be the safest route. Get more information. We should try not to assume. Obviously, that's goes without saying. Try so hard not to assume. That's really big. And if someone seems out of character, something bigger might be going on. Like I said, that's that iceberg. And then get both sides of the story before coming to a conclusion. So I'm going to pause there for just a second. Tim, have you got a question for me?
No questions so far. We have a comment from Melanie Chambers, who said, "I love how Brene Brown says the story I'm telling myself is ... And so that was a good comment. And other than that, does anybody have any questions, comments?
Awesome. Thank you, Melanie, for that. I appreciate it. It's really true that, we tell ourselves stories all the time. And that's largely what a good therapist is going to work on, using a cognitive approach, is to work on those stories that we tell ourselves. And oftentimes, I can just have a conversation with a person. If we're good enough friends, I can say something like, "Now, is that the story you're telling yourself?" My wife, on the flip side, if I tell a story over and over and over again, I keep forgetting that I tell the same story. She'll say, "Oh, that's a nice story, honey. Thank you for that." So yeah, it's all about our thought process. It's all about our thinking patterns. It's all about the stories that we tell ourselves on a regular basis. All right, jumping to conclusions. Wait a minute, we're moving on. Emotional reasoning. Okay, I don't know how many of you have seen this wheel of emotions. Okay, but one of the things that's interesting is if you look at the core of this, it says I'm feeling, and then it gives basic emotions. Okay, so we've got love, fear, anger, sadness, surprise, joy, and then you see how it branches out, and there are so many other terms that also mean the same thing, that can also help define what's going on, what's happening right here. So we need to be mindful of those feelings and how our feelings either betray us to a certain extent, how our feelings help us, how our feelings work with us or against us. It can be both. It can be a lot of different things. When we're doing therapy, one of the things that we'll talk about is we'll talk about hurt oftentimes. And we get hurt. We get hurt all the time. We get hurt by all kinds of people in all different circumstances, situations. But oftentimes to save us from hurt, something else will come in between us and that individual. Okay. So let's say, for example, your boss hurt your feelings big time, overstepped bounds, hurt your feelings so bad, it's really hard to get over. Well, anger sometimes can be one of those factors that comes in between you and your boss. Okay. Avoidance can be another one that comes in between you and your boss. There can be a lot of those different things that come into play there. And those emotions are good. They're protecting you. They're doing something for you to help you so that you're not hurt again. It's a defense mechanism that's built into all of us. Okay. And that being said, we need to be mindful of what one feeling may be doing to protect our hurt feelings. All right, so this emotional reasoning refers to acceptance of one's emotions as fact. So emotions are real. They don't lie, they don't cheat, they don't steal. They can be hard, they can be difficult. And sometimes some of us would love to push those emotions aside because we're like, you know what, my emotions, you're just not serving me well right now. I've got to be logical, I got to be on my game, I got to get this done. I've got all these different things that I got to do. I need a clear mind to do it. And emotions, you're causing that problems. So here's a couple of examples. I feel it, therefore it must be true. So if somebody says something, maybe there's a direct criticism that's given to you in a one-on-one with a supervisor. And it stings, it hurts. And I'm hurt Therefore, I have a mean boss. Therefore, my boss hates me. Therefore, they are not after my best interest. Whatever the case might be, because there's that hurt there. That might not be the case. Okay. You are hurt because of the comment, yes. And we need to dive in and explore that. But maybe that wasn't the intent. Maybe that wasn't where that individual is coming from. And there again, that's a great opportunity in a safe environment, a safe place, to have a conversation with that individual and say, you know what? That comment really kind of stung. Can you tell me more about that? Can you give me more information? Can you give me more insight into what you mean so that I can understand you a little bit better? Another one here, excuse me, I feel sad. I must have depression. Okay. One of the interesting things about this is I catch my kids doing this all the time. They'll come up to me and they're like, Dad, I'm sad today. I must have depression. No, you don't have depression. You're just sad today. Maybe you're a little depressed today, but clinically you don't have a depression as a diagnosis. Sometimes they'll come and say, well, I'm worried. I have anxiety. I have anxiety about this, and I have anxiety about that. And I have anxiety about all these different things. I'm like, okay, anxiety, that's one way to describe it. Could it be that you're just worried? Maybe you're nervous. My daughter just went and performed in regional solo ensemble. And she says, this gives me so much anxiety. I don't know why I'm doing it. And I'm like, well, what if we, change that term a little bit and said, maybe you're worried, maybe you're scared, maybe you're frightened of this. And maybe it does give you, anxiety, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have an anxiety disorder. So things to do in this area is self-talk. Okay. There are a lot of Instagram people, therapists, that have wonderful posts on a daily basis that can help you pause and reconnect with yourself. Sometimes these emotions that we have can disconnect us from the world, and sometimes going through some breathing exercises and then self-talk, talking yourself through this and saying, no, this is just a feeling. Feelings are given to us for a reason and a purpose to keep us safe. And it's not the end of the world. I can get through this performance. I can get through this presentation that I've got to give. I can get through this work meeting that I'm working on. I can do that. I can do hard things, and it's okay. And I will be okay. Acknowledge that the emotions change. Yesterday my daughter had high anxiety. She had a lot of fear. She had a lot of worry and stuff like that. Is she going to wake up tomorrow and have the same thing? Well, probably not, because she's not going to region. She's not performing. For us, it may be that one day we have something that takes us out of our comfort zone, and then the next day we're back in our comfort zone, and things are okay, and we're going to be all right. And then don't set up camp and live there. And this is kind of a motto that we have in our home, and I bring it to the office too. Oftentimes when people are emotionally charged and they are just struggling, I'll say, you know what? It's okay. The struggle is real. I understand you're going through the struggle. Just don't set up camp and live there. Okay? It's going to change. It's going to be okay. Things are going to get better. One day you're going to be, sad. The next day you may be happy. Different things changes those, and emotions can change sometimes as the wind, and it's all right. We get to experience a whole wide range of emotions, and they all do something for us. And they're not the enemy. They're not our enemy. They are there to help us understand the world in which we live in, and accept that that's the case. It's not that we need to set up camp and live in Sadville. It's not that we need to set up camp and live in Worried Wharf. It's just, we don't have to stay there. We can put things in our lives to help change those things. Tim, I saw a couple more comments in the chat. What do we got?
Yeah, kind of just some more thoughts, really. One quoting, "Don't believe everything you think." And another, "I think, I feel, I need have helped me in communicating with others."
That's awesome. And I love that. Think, feel, need. It would be great if we created more safe environments where we could have that think, feel, and need, and let people know what is it that you need. In our world today, and I don't know that there's probably a few therapists out there that probably don't agree with me, but anyway, our phones are always going. Whether you're, at line of the DMV, which I don't blame anybody for doing that because the lines of the DMV are just absolutely horrible. You're on your phone, right? Whether you're there sitting and waiting at the car dealership and you're getting your car fixed and stuff like that. I'm on the phone, I'm on the sense. And sometimes we don't put our phone down and strike up a conversation with the person next to us and get to know a little bit about what's going on in their world. Sometimes getting to know what's going on in other people's world can help what's going on in my world. And then maybe we lift, their spirits just a little bit, knowing that somebody took a minute to put down a phone and have a conversation. When I'm dealing with couples and marriage, that's another big one. I can't tell you how many couples come home from work. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" "Great." I was saying, blah, blah. They have dinner and then they're on their phones for the rest of the night, the two of them. Are they sitting there watching a movie together? Yes, but each of them are on their phones. Are they cuddling on the couch? Yes, but each of them are on their phones. And they're not talking and they're not having conversations. And sometimes we have forgotten how to have some deep, meaningful conversations. And sometimes we've forgotten how to create those safe spaces to say, "Hey, I have a concern. What can I do to help you?" Things like that. Okay, should statements. This is something that we steal from our childhood. Remember when you were a kid and you're like, "Oh, I should get this, and I should get that, and I should be this way, and I should that," Sometimes we grab that mentality and we keep it from our childhood. Either we never grew out of it, like me, or we go back to that when problems arise, when life gets hard and tough. We're like, "It shouldn't be this tough, and I should get this promotion, and I should have this award, and I should have had that idea, and somebody spoke up before me." I can't tell you how many times that's happened in a meeting. I'm like, "Oh, hey, I had that idea too, and somebody stole my thunder. Dang it." So should statements are dangerous because there's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of should haves and should be's, and it doesn't do us any good. What's happened is happened. What's done is done. We can't go back and fix anything by worrying or shoulding about it all the time. Should is not going to help you be a better person. It's going to stick you in the past and keep you there. So we there again, we can't set up camp and we can't live there, and different things. The last thing on the bottom of the slide there, these things lead to anger and resentment, and we need to have a mindset. Nobody's entitled. Nobody's entitled to a job. Nobody's entitled to this sense of entitlement that we have, and it comes across all generations. It's not just the incoming generation. Sometimes us older folks look at the younger folks and are like, "Yeah, you guys are really entitled." Well, I'm sure a lot of the older folks look at me and say, "You're pretty darn entitled." I know all of my older siblings think I'm pretty entitled, but we're not entitled. We're not entitled to anything. We have to work. We have to put forth the time, effort, and energy to make things work. So shoulding about it sticks us in the past. And if we're living in the past, we are not present. We are not present for the people we need to be present for. Labeling and mislabeling things. There's so many different labels out there. Mental health labeling is dangerous. I remember one of my first psychology class that I had in my master's program. We were talking about diagnoses and things. And one of the things that the teacher did, he said, all right, you're going to turn to the person next to you. You're going to diagnose them. Don't read the DSM. Don't look at any diagnostic criteria. You just look at them in the eye and say, boom, you have this. And I still remember to this day. I had borderline personality disorder. And I was like, where in the world did my partner come up with that? And immediately after they said that, I'm like, I have to go research it. I have to go find this out so I can figure out what this label is that has to do with me. And that can be a problem, because I mean, if anybody has read the DSM before, you can go through it and you can diagnose yourself with everything in that book so easily. So labeling yourself as anxious and anxiety, labeling yourself as a procrastinator, and then you'll never get out of your procrastination. We label ourselves, other people label us, other people say stuff to us, like, Spence, you're bald. I'm like, okay, I'm labeling myself. I'm bald. It doesn't need to stick. It doesn't need to stay. It doesn't need to define me and who I am. I mean, I've embraced my baldness, and my wife loves it. And hey, I'm happy. I can shower and go, and don't worry about it. So labels, they cause problems. They get in our way, and they get in our mind, and they fester. And then we either live up to those expectations, or they hold us back. And then change is not something we can do, because we get stuck there. There again, don't set up camp and don't stay there. What to do? Acknowledge that everyone has labels. Everybody labels each other regardless. In your head, boom, you label somebody. You're like, all right, you're this way. You're this kind of person because you act this way, or you said this, or you behave this way. Throw those out. They're like assumptions. Get rid of them. Get rid of as many as you possibly can. And we'll talk about ways to track these here. Identify how you label people. What do I do? Do I walk into a room? Do I look across everybody and go, boom, 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 here's everybody, and I've labeled you all. So you're stuck that way. Sorry. Or do we hold off, and do we get to know people before we label anybody anything? Labeling is just, it just can't happen. It stifles work in so many different ways. Fallacies. Now, these fallacies are ones that some clinicians like to break up into their own. I kind of put all the fallacies in one. This is the no fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair that I'm this way. I'm not fair that it's, this other person does this. It's not fair that this person got a promotion over me. It's not fair that this person got their way and I didn't. It's not fair that, I am who I am. It's not fair that I live where I live. And I'm like, wait a minute. Put within not fair. I chose to get this job. I chose to be this way. I chose this behavior. I chose this attitude. I get to choose who I am. And that's fair. Are we perfect all the time? No. So you're not a victim. You're not a victim of fate. Fate is not something that is a force that is hashing on you day in and day out. You have a choice to change. You have a choice to become different. Do you have complete control over everything and everyone and everything? No, not we don't. We don't have control over everything. Things are going to happen. Bad things happen to good people. Good things happen to bad people. It's just kind of the way and the cycle of life that we live in. And so fair is not something that is a part of life. I keep telling my kids that all the time. Maybe one day they'll listen. Life is not going to be fair, and it's not. But I can be okay with that. I can be okay with things not being fair, because it shakes things up a little bit. It makes variety in life. It makes things spontaneous and new and different and exciting, change and all those different things. So there's the fallacy of fairness. There's the fallacy of change. Change makes everything better, or that makes everything worse. And there's some examples there about those fallacies. As we continue here, fallacies, heaven's reward. This is a little bit more on the spiritual side of things, but spirituality is also a big part of mental health. Sometimes we get our just desserts, and there's mine. There's my cake. I love it. And there's my vegetables. What are we after? Do we search for that piece of cake that we're always looking for and never satisfied because it's always just out of reach? It's always the next step. Or do we sit down and do we eat the good with the bad? Do we take in the good food with the bad food? Do we take things in stride? There's so many different fallacies that can fail us out there. Tim, it looks like we've got a few more comments in there.
Yeah, I mean, mostly it's just some of us discussing how unfair it is that it's still snowing at the end of March.
Right? Spring in Utah. How unfair is that? Construction is another one. How unfair is construction in Utah? Oh, man. Yeah.
Ongoing.
It is ongoing all the time.
No, we've got a few more good comments here. One of my catchphrases is stop shoulding on yourself.
Yes.
And then this is a quote from, and I'm probably going to butcher this name, but Soren Kierkegaard. If you name me, you negate me. By giving me a name, a label, you negate all the other things I could possibly be.
Right. And there's so much mystery and wonder to every single person you meet. And if we jump in and we label somebody, if we look at the cover and we just label, we miss all of that, because that first preconceived label is what tears down every opportunity for that mystery of getting to know or understand each other. The other thing about that too is that people are constantly changing. And sometimes we can have a label or a memory, or we can see somebody a certain way 10 years ago, and then we come back and we expect them to be the exact same, but they've changed. Give people the opportunity to change. We're all growing, we're all evolving into new and different things. Change is definitely a part of life, and we can't leave people stuck there just because we labeled them. It just doesn't work.
And we've got a request here for you to talk a little bit more about the fallacy of change.
Ooh. For you to talk about it, or for me to talk about it?
For you.
So the fallacy of change there, let's go back. Boom. So change makes everything better. Sometimes we look at those as a fear, and we say it can either be better or can either be worse. And this lends into a couple of the other ones that we've already talked about. But if my colleague gets a different job, I won't have to deal with them anymore. So, if they leave, they're the weak link or the obnoxious person, in the office. We all know who we are, I'm just saying. That's when we look at change to make something better. Sometimes we're always looking for that next horizon, right? We're always looking for summer, because spring is so unfair. And we're like, summertime would be so nice. And then it'll be hot. And we're like, oh, we want to have fall so it'll cool down and I can see the leaves. And so sometimes we're always looking for that change, and that change is supposed to make me happy. So maybe I get a better job. Maybe I get a better promotion at work. Maybe my life is better once I make so much money, or I have so many investments. So we always look to that change to make us happy, but it doesn't always do that. Happiness has to come from inside of us. We can't be always looking for that next open door in order to make us happy. Change makes things worse. We can always be worried that, okay, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and the whole world is going to fall apart. Who knows what, who knows who's going to go to war tomorrow? Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows who's going to raise taxes? Who knows if we're going to walk out the door and we're going to hit another pandemic or something we haven't experienced yet? A lot of people are worried about that. A lot of people have said, wow, this pandemic thing, had no idea it was going to hit us. Not at all. And then all of a sudden, here we are, and this is how people choose to do things. And other people's choices have inflicted problems and issues on me and my situation. So we can always wake up the next day and the day after that saying, well, who else knows what's going to happen? And so that's the fallacy of change. Makes everything better. We're always looking for that next horizon, or it makes things worse because we've already seen the worst. Why not just expect it? And there again, for both of those, don't set up camp, don't live there, and remember that there's always gray. There's always going to be good. There's always going to be bad. And be in the moment. Enjoy the moment of those things. Many of you know that my youngest is a cancer survivor already. And she's just 12 years old. At the age of 4, she was diagnosed with cancer, and we fought through that whole entire battle. And somebody pulled me aside at the beginning of this, and they said, as you go through this, Spence, you're going to have a lot of problems, and you're going to be really worried, you're going to be scared, and it's going to be really emotional, and you're going to have a lot of struggles. Take time to live in the moment, experience that, remember that, accept it for what it is, and let it be. Let it be what it is. So if you can enjoy those bad times, if you can really, let those bad times sink in, the good times will also be able to sink in. Now that we're on the other side of cancer, and she's been clean for more than 5 years, now I can enjoy those days with her. Now I can enjoy more of those things because I didn't hide from the bad, the negative, and the hard. Was it hard to go through? Yeah. Was that difficult to experience? You bet it was. But if we can feel the bad and acknowledge it and be in a place with it, we can also do the same when things are good. When we're talking about births and marriages and graduations and milestones in life, be present for those, experience those, love those, enjoy those. And you can experience a fullness of life, whether it be both good or bad. Okay, moving right along. I know we're short on time, but always being right. Now, you guys know who this person is on your team. They always have to be right, and they always have to get the last word in. Just saying. Okay. Perfectionism, the imposter syndrome is very, very real. And they must always be right. Wrong is unacceptable. If they ever get corrected, these people get hurt, they get angry, they can lash out. In some cases and situations, you're like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm just a little correction here, but boom, it just blows up. We're seeing this a lot in our kids these days. And so a lot of the teenagers that I'm working with nowadays, their parents are just trying to give them correction because they are parents. But inevitably, those kids are not taking the correction very, very well. It's very catastrophic because they feel like they can't do anything right. But they have to be right. And that's a dire need for them to be right and on top of things and do good and not be a failure, all those different things. So always being right, that can be a stress and a struggle for a lot of people. But simply, acknowledging, understanding that you need to be right. Look at those hurt feelings, the anger, the resentment, the anxiety, because you have to be right, and try to let some of those go. Work with a professional to let some of that mindset go, because we don't always have to be right. Right is not always right. Sometimes wrong is a good direction to head because we can learn. We can learn from some of those different things. So work on not always being right. So here's some things that I can throw at you that you guys can do. You can suggest to friends, family members, coworkers, colleagues, whatever the case might be. So here's some great techniques. Identification is big. Identify what the problem is. Look inside yourself. Self-observation is huge. Take time every day for self-reflection. That's that mindfulness part right there. Are you taking time out of your day on a regular basis to be mindful? Build awareness of mindfulness there, so that you can see what's going on and happening. You can read some of these things now that they've been pointed out to you, and then sit with them, be with them, try to understand them, and try to understand where they crop up in your life and what changes you can put in place to make those course corrections. Automatic thought record. Now, this is journaling at its finest right here. Write down these things. Anytime you feel like you have to write, any of the fallacies, write those down. If you're polarized thinking, when any of those, write those down in a journal or keep a log in your phone, whatever the case might be. The more you write them down, the more the evident they will come to you. Factor opinion outlets. So this is writing down the facts, or I feel hurt, I feel this way. Journaling those things are really cool. Asking clarifying questions all the time. Clarifying questions, you can't use them enough. The assume jar, I love this, okay? This is like a swear jar. You know, if you're trying to quit swearing, put a quarter in, or, you know, with inflation, put $5 in. You know, then you can go to Disneyland or Hawaii, wherever you want to go on your vacation. But the assume jar is every time you assume, you put something in there. It's an acknowledgement, it's an awareness builder right there. Get a mentor. I highly recommend this. I don't think we use mentors enough in our world. And I have a few folks that I mentor, which is a lot of fun. I learn something from them. They learn something from me. And it's great to bounce things off of each other so that you've got that mirror. And they're not afraid to say, hey, Spence, you know, buddy, you're doing this one. And they're like, oh, yeah, I am. Okay, I need to change. I'll be better. Sorry, I'll move on. So a mentor is really good. And then always, if these distortions get really, really bad, and you're in a really, really dark place, please. The stigma behind therapy, especially amongst our male population, needs to go. Therapy is something everybody needs to be in. Therapy is something everybody ought to do. I'm a therapist. I have a therapist. You know, I mean, I would not be any good at this if I didn't have my therapist where I could go complain, you know. But aside from that, having a good friend, creating spaces where you can go and talk, safe spaces where you can open up to people. And if you don't feel like you can talk to the person directly, go talk to somebody else. Find a friend who will listen, who will help give you some good advice so that you can turn around and approach the people that hurt us in our lives, because that all happens on a regular basis. So questions, insights, more information you want to have about all of this? What questions do you have? You are more than welcome. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Yes, get the slides. I mean, I just threw them up 5 minutes before this, but you can have them. Yeah. I'll give them to Tim, and then he can distribute them out because he knows where all of you live in Zoom land. So.
Yep, and I just posted this as well, but we will post this recording to the SEA YouTube channel. So I posted a link to that if you want to give us a follow. And then the SEA newsletter that goes out will also have a link to watch that as well. But I can send the slides and that link to everybody who registered today.
Hey, Spence, I'll just jump in and say thanks for taking the time. And it was really well done and really clear and informative. And it just kind of no questions because it all just kind of makes sense and was really pragmatic. So it's
good.
Helpful to hear it all out
Thanks,
loud.
Jeremy. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So Spencer, we do have a question in the chat here.
Yep.
I'm curious about the mentor part. How do you go about that?
That's a great question. It's always a good idea to find a mentor, somebody who is in a place or a position where you ought to be, or somebody that you feel safe talking to. I think oftentimes we look at mentors as a way to move up in a company or an organization, but oftentimes it's great to have a mental mentor. And this is a new concept. It's something that is something that I like to do rather than therapy, because I'm not doing therapy on friends, because that's not, ethical. That's not right. But it's a good opportunity for us to have conversations in safe places. Being a friend, you don't need a license for that. You don't need a license to be a mentor, but to visit with individuals who you admire, who you respect, who you feel confident that you can talk to about some of these different things. They're great outside perspective givers, okay? They're great at giving that perspective and helping you kind of see things from a different angle and a different point of view. We all need that every day. It can be as simple as having a friend. But if you don't have a friend that you feel safe or comfortable about, or maybe they don't know or understand the professional side of your world, don't hesitate to find somebody. Look for somebody who you feel comfortable with. You decide the criteria of however you feel comfortable about them, and then say, hey, I could really use a mentor. Would you mind being my mentor? I meet on a weekly basis with the folks that I mentor, and we talk about a wide range of different things. We talk about work. We talk about how to traverse different relationships. We talk about how to work with people who are struggling. We talk about family situations. We talk about all kinds of different things. And the difference between a therapeutic session versus a mentor session, in a mentor session, we're both sharing, okay? It's not a one-way street. It's not where you're going in and talking to a therapist and you're actually doing cognitive therapy or a whole host of other therapies. We're not even getting in the realm of therapy. It's just getting that other person's perspective to help you be a better person, to help you traverse life the best way you possibly can. We all need friends, and this is a great way to get a hold of somebody to do that for you. So I hope that helps. So.
Any other questions? We still have a little bit of time for a couple more.
Don't be shy. I'm sure the person next to you probably has the same question. I also take questions, that start out by saying, I have a friend.
Hey, Spence, I'm just curious, because you mentioned that there's sometimes the struggle of getting over, like, you should go to therapy or I should go to therapy, especially I have noticed it in my male friends. Do you have suggestions of how to bring that up and how to help overcome that stigma that has existed? And I think we're improving as a society in general, but just wondering if you have suggestions or ideas of how to help people overcome that stigmatization.
You bet. Every conversation like this can be hard and difficult. And thanks, Shanda, for bringing this up, because I think this is huge. If you approach it with love and respect and a sincere desire, and you make sure that that person knows and understands that you sincerely are concerned, worried, want to see the best for them and out of them, that's a great place to start. That's a great place for you to begin, and letting that person know, hey, there's a couple things that I've seen. I'm worried about you, and I really love you, and I really care about you and who you are. You're my friend, you're my colleague, you're, whoever you are. I think that a therapist could help you. Are you concerned about going to see somebody? What are some of your concerns? How do you feel about that? Why is that, a concern for you? Why haven't you gone? Honestly, a lot of people might say, well, I'm on a wait list. My wait list right now, folks, is a year out. And I feel so bad about that. But right now, we just don't have enough clinicians in the state of Utah. That's really rough. But that's a great way to start, some of those conversations, to sit people down and say, hey, I want to create a safe space for you. I want to talk about this. I'm concerned about you. I love you. I want to see life get better. We work really hard to help students who have ADA issues receive accommodations. All of us need those same accommodations. Mental health accommodations, they're no different. That's where we need to stop looking at mental health as I'm sick, or people are going to look down on me, or if I have a therapist and anybody finds out, I'm going to be tagged, or people are going to think, oh crap, Spence, you can't perform your job or your duties. There's all kinds of different concerns there. And really the bottom line comes down to love, concern, and saying, hey, I will go with you. I will help you any step of the way I possibly can. Whatever's going to help you feel more comfortable. I'm going to be there for you. And so those are just a couple ideas. I hope that helps you, Shanda.
We've got a couple questions in the chat as well, Spencer. One is, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but how do you help someone who needs help but is paralyzed to get help?
That's a really great point. Clarifying questions are always helpful, and doing some reflective listening. So it seems like you're paralyzed to go and do this. It seems like it scares you to death to move forward with this. Tell me about it. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what's happening. And get them to talk a little bit more about it. Get them to open up. Now, if they are truly paralyzed, and I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody come through my office and they are paralyzed, they will look off in the distance. Their eyes will be, gone. They're open. They're not blinking. They are just off. It seems like in their own little world. In that situation, I need to pull them out of that. Okay. And there's a couple different things that you can do in order to help them with that. Ice is probably one of the biggest ones. If you can get them to hold some ice in their hand, it'll send a signal back up to their brain that they need to check back in. Another thing that's really good, ice water is an excellent help. I always make sure that all of my clients that come through the office, I have ice water there. If they don't take it, that's fine, but it's there. And I try to encourage them to take a drink so that they can recalibrate for a minute and come back to reality and life and what's going on. And then we can start addressing some of those different things. So those are a couple different things to help somebody who is paralyzed. You can also have them do some bilateral stimulation, some tapping back and forth. Just say, let's take a minute. Let's sit here for just a moment and let's tap. Just tap back and forth. And it can be on the shoulders. Some with kids, I have them make a bird and they can tap their collarbone back and forth. Or you can just tap your knees. Tap your knee back and forth, whatever the case might be, and let them have a moment to pull themselves out of that situation. Sometimes when emotions overwhelm us so much, we literally get paralyzed. And those are just a couple ways to pull somebody out of that. And then asking clarification, find out where they're coming from, get to the root of that iceberg that they're facing, and see if there's some ways that you can help them chip away with it. Can I walk with you? Can I take you to this professional? Can we make the phone call right now? Different things like that to help them take those steps that are needed and necessary to help them be successful.
Couple more questions here. One, suggestions to diffuse a conversation where all members have to be right. And how do you get a mental health accommodation for a team? Awesome.
Okay, we'll take Susan's question first there. So suggestions to diffuse conversation where all members are right. This is a tough one, right? We've all been in situations where everybody just has to be right and everything like that. One of the best things that you could do is even call a timeout and say, whoa, let's just take a break for a minute. Let's take a breather. Let's table this idea for a minute. Let's do a little bit more research. You can see where each individual is coming from. You can say, okay, will each of you go back and do a little bit more research on this. That can be helpful. And then we can come back and look at things. Another thing you can do if you really want to shake things up a little bit, if you have, let's say, 4 people and one person is right, the other person right, you can say, okay, this person, you feel you're right about this, okay? And then this person feels you're right because of this. Would you, person number 1, would you do some more research on person number 4 and why they're right? And then, cross-section each person so that they're researching somebody else's reason for being right and see if you both could be right. Sometimes in some situations you can say, well, take a pause. Hey, I think right here, we're going to have to just agree to disagree. And you all can be right. And you all technically can. I mean, there may not be a wrong answer to this situation. And so those are a couple of ways to diffuse situations where where everybody feels like they're right. And it's true, you can agree that everybody's right. Everybody could have a different favorite drink when they go off to Maverick, and that's okay. You're all right. You all have the drink that you love and enjoy. It doesn't necessarily mean I need to enjoy it. But thank you for sharing the fact that Dr. Pepper is better than Coke, or Coke is better than Dr. Pepper, whatever the case might be. How do you get a mental health accommodation for teens? That is a really good question. You definitely have to go through a professional, a therapist, to have some professional testing done, and there can be accommodations that can be extended to teenagers. This can be especially helpful too if you're looking at a lot of days off of school. I mean, a lot of schools don't want students taking a whole lot of days off of school, but sometimes mental health, it just is that way. And sometimes individuals who are low functioning anxiety and low functioning depression, they need to have extra accommodations. They need to have those accommodations so that they can be successful. It doesn't mean that you're not going to continue to work with a therapist to help overcome those challenges, but those accommodations can help those students really thrive in different areas. And don't be afraid to advocate for your kids. Sometimes there are some teachers, and we all know who they are, can be a bear. And I hate to say it, sometimes they're more the male teachers, but there are even some female teachers that can really be a bear and can be they bring a whole lot of anxiety into the classroom anyway. And so advocate for your kids and find a teacher who does not bring in that much baggage into the classroom. And you can find that those can be ways to do accommodations without having to go through the whole entire process. Just make sure you find individuals that are the right fit to help educate. So hope that's helpful. Last one here, I really struggle with safe place idea. Sorry, Tim, I'm taking your job. I apologize.
Hey, you're good. Take it over.
I really struggle with the safe place idea because per USU policy, I'm a reporter as far as abuse, etc. But I do understand why USU needs the policy. It is also hard balancing, maintaining the line between boss and friend. Yeah, there's a lot of different areas there. And sometimes being a supervisor myself, sometimes you can't be the boss, sometimes you can't be the friend. However, I will tell you, because I am bald, I wear a lot of hats, okay? And it is okay for you to designate the hats that you wear in creating a safe space. And here's what I mean. So, for example, if I've got somebody who I wrote a performance evaluation on and I told them that there were some areas that they needed to improve. And they come out and they say, hey, Spence, what you said really hurt me. I thought you understood. I thought, blah, blah, yada, yada. And I'll say, yes, I do understand. And I am your friend. And I do wear multiple hats in this situation. And because I wrote this, it does not mean that I value you any less as a person. This is just a means. This is a tool. This is a way for me to help you become better. And I want you to be successful. I want you to be the person that I know you can become. And I'm going to help you get there every step of the way. This isn't me just throwing, you to the dogs. This is just a step in the process. You can say the same things about reporting. And you can say, look, I am a reporter and I need to, report certain things, but I'm going to be your friend. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be with you every step of the way I possibly can be, to be a sounding board, to be a help, to love you through this, to have compassion for what you're going through. And I'm not going to leave you high and dry in any of this process. So sometimes I have to tell people I'm wearing the supervisor hat. And as your supervisor, this is what you want to do. This is the direction you want to head. Okay. Now I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take that hat off and I'm going to be your friend from it. And let me tell you, what you're going through is really hard. What you're suffering through, it's really, really difficult. I know that and I get that and I understand. I'm sorry. I feel bad for what you're having to go through. And that's a struggle. And I want to do whatever I possibly can to help you through that. And just know that this is my friend hat. This is my supervisor hat. Sometimes they may cross. Sometimes they may not. But whatever it is, I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to leave you high and dry. And we're going to follow through this entire process. And also in that case, Jennifer, it's always a good idea to get a mentor too. Somebody a little bit higher up, and say, hey, this is the situation that happened. Bring more friends to the team and create a team environment where we're lifting, we're loving, we're supporting, we're helping. We are after the best interest of this individual because we want them truly to be successful. We want them to have the things that they need to be successful. And then you take a tragedy and you make it into a success. And not only does that person succeed, but you succeed and the whole entire team succeeds, because we all work together to make sure that one individual was able to get through the struggle that they were having. And who knows, you may even save a life. I mean, really, that's where we are, folks. That's really where we are. Are there sources for teaching mindfulness to someone with high functioning autism? Yes, you can actually, there's several YouTube videos that you can find. Look up mindfulness or just look up mindfulness in general. There's a lot of different things you can do there, but mindfulness for autism, there are some resources out there that you can find, that will really, really be a help to you. Also, there's a lot of autism associations. Reach out to some of them and ask them about some of the mindfulness things that you can have. Mindfulness is so broad and it's far reaching across all different levels. It doesn't matter what mental issues we're talking about or dealing with. There is some aspect of mindfulness that touches any and all of that. Because it's such a broad topic and it allows for a lot of flexibility when we're dealing and working with a whole wide range of mental health issues. So,
All
good
right.
questions.
Thank you, Spencer.
You had enough of me already. We get to go back to work.
Appreciate you sticking around with us past our time.
You betcha. Happy to do it. And thank you all for being here. And again, I really do consider each and every one of you my Aggie family, and go out there and do some good in the world.